Well, the last 48 hours have been absolute chaos in the Iran conflict, the oil economy, and the stock market as well. We've had Iran escalating things, the US escalating things, oil prices absolutely flying as a result, all of which causing the stock market to get very shaky, with the S&P 500 currently down about 0.4%, the Dow Jones down about 0.7%, even the nasdaq down a little bit, the Russell 2000 down nearly a full percentage. I mean, it has been chaos. And in today's video, what I wanted to do to kick off the week is give you a full update on what is happening, why oil prices are flying, why the stock market's down as a result, some of the latest news that you need to know in the stock market going into the week, and much more. So we have a lot to get into today. So let's not waste any time at all, and let's get straight into it. So let's talk about some of the latest, okay? So this weekend, yeah, it was a bit hectic, okay? It was a bit hectic when it comes to the Iran conflict. There were multiple strikes. There was an Iranian oil depot that was struck. We saw Iran actually earlier this morning elected a new supreme leader, kind of going against what Donald Trump said that he wanted, which is causing even more escalation and more conflict, which obviously caused all the markets to start to freak out. Now, due to this escalation, oil prices went nuts. It was nuts. And if you were watching the prices when it happened, it was almost hard to believe. Like, in the span of minutes, you saw oil, like even WTI, crude oil, everything climbing from 91, 92, 95, 97, 100, 105, 112. I mean, it was just running, at one point running all the way up to $118. Global oil prices at one point, guys, were up like 30% over the span of a day. And I was sitting there looking at this like, there's no way. Like, if this continues, yeah, $200 a barrel could be coming. But then next thing you know, it just stops on a dime. And next thing you know, while everyone, I guess, supposes that oil prices are going to continue upwards, and you start to see those longs enter the market, people start longing oil, when naturally it starts to correct and then just falls off a cliff. You see oil prices fall from $119 all the way down to $92 for the West Texas index. For crude oil, you saw it fall all the way from, what was this? The high was at like $120 all the way back down to about $99. I mean, absolute chaos. It's just been absolute chaos. And again, the market doesn't like this sort of volatility. It's the reason why, even though we are seeing oil prices pulling back, the market's not really recovered super well during this recovery, because the stock market, from what I can see, it just doesn't respond well to chaos. Like, a little uncertainty is okay, a little bit of conflict is okay, but when things go full-blown just stupid mode, the market always responds by just pulling back, because people are de-risking, right? You got to think there's hundreds of millions, billions, even trillions of dollars moving and flowing through these markets, and they're not wanting to take big risks not knowing what the outcome of certain situations will be. And so if there's a big threat that inflation's going to climb, if there's a big threat that this is going to escalate, or other countries like China or Russia are going to get involved, people will de-risk. It's just what they're going to do, especially as bonds, of course, the bond yields become more appealing right now, right? And so you see the market starting to pull back right now. In a pretty ugly way. Now, I will say it is holding up decently well. Like, although it is falling, it is holding up decently well. If we actually go out to the S&P 500 and we look at the chart, we have started to break down a little bit, but it has shown signs of trying to fight back, right? You're hitting some of these lower levels right here. You're creating these wicks, and the market is trying to recover, clearly showing that there is still bullish buy pressure coming up through some of these lower levels around $608, $611, forming from that $600 liquidity zone back here. But at the end of the day, the market has started to pull back out of purely just a lack of certainty. That's really where it's coming from. Now, we have gotten some updates, though. We have gotten some updates that I actually would say are pretty positive, that could allow this market to continue to feel a little bit more certain going forward, okay? So one update that I saw that I thought was pretty interesting. This was what? This was only like, this was like an hour and a half ago. The UK announced that they are ready to support the release of oil stockpiles. So what you can see here is that the Chancellor tells the Commons that she spoke with the G7 finance ministers today and discussed immediately priorities, such as ensuring oil can safely pass through the Strait of Hormuz. The UK is a global hub for maritime insurance, and Reeve says she is due to meet with the chair of Lloyd's of London and Insurance Marketplace later. She says the UK government stands ready to support a coordinated release of collective international energy reserves, a move that is being considered across Europe but not yet confirmed. Reeve also confirms that the energy price cap will not raise in April, meaning bills will stay fixed at their current rates at least until June, which is good for inflationary purposes, especially globally. She does say that inflation is likely to rise in the coming months, though the UK's financial markets are continuing to function normally despite global disruption, and they are putting plans in place, of course, to stabilize the oil situation, which is good, because when the market hears things like this, it brings a little bit more calmness, where people are like, okay, the UK is joining in America's effort to stabilize oil prices. Now, one thing that could Stabilize oil long term, but destabilize it long term, or destabilize it short term, is what Trump said about like 40 minutes ago. On Monday, today, Trump left open the prospect of acquiring Iranian oil as the U.S. proceeds with a war that officials said was supposed to be about the nuclear weapons, but he left the door open about seizing Iranian oil. Now, he never said that he would do it, but he didn't say he wouldn't. And one thing that I have found interesting is that people still do think that this is just a nuclear weapons thing. Like, yeah, of course, it's about nuclear weapons. Sure. And yes, Venezuela was also about their leader being bad. You think it's coincidence that Venezuela and Iran are two of China's largest oil suppliers and we've attacked them both within like the span of a month? No. And so this, on the other hand, is like, if this is something that Trump enacts, I actually do think it could provide some stability to oil long term because the U.S. sees more control over something that has been held and controlled by a very fragile regime, right? Fragile in the sense of like emotions flaring all the freaking time. So the U.S., which the U.S. does as well, but you get the point. Like, I think that actually would be a net positive long term, but in the short term, that could destabilize things because remember, Iran, I think it's like, I think the last time I looked, it was like $1.1 million of oil we provide, or that Iran provides to China daily. And if we were to acquire or seize their oil, I'm sure that would immediately kind of stop or halt or something would happen there. So there definitely would be disruptions. It would destabilize the region. Global oil prices could definitely start being impacted by some sort of change in guard of that oil. So a lot could happen there. So there's a lot of news right now. And this sort of news is the reason why you're seeing prices flying all over the place. You got Trump now talking about possibly seizing it. You got the UK saying that they would step in and help with some of their oil reserves and stockpiles. All of that just causing oil prices to frickin' just bounce around all over the place. Look at that wick. It's just absolutely nuts. And again, as a result, VOO is pulling back because it doesn't like uncertainty. It doesn't like chaos. And so in a moment like this, it's kind of one of those situations when you're seeing so much craziness happen and so much volatility, you got to either do one of two things. You got to be willing to buy into the volatility to like purchase in times like this, or just sit back and let it all play out. I think that's the only two real good options. I'm not somebody who's big on like selling in moments like this. I think the opportunity cost of selling right now is in favor of not selling. So yeah, I'm just the type of guy where it's like, I'm either buying now or I'm not doing anything. Personally, I am planning on DCing a little bit this week. I'm under the mindset that this whole oil situation is not going to last as long as people think. You know, a lot of people have compared what we're seeing right now to what we saw in the 70s and the 80s when Iran and Iraq went to war. Basically, long story short, in like 1979, there was an Iranian revolution where the regime was taken down and a new regime was put in place. This destabilized their military forces. So Iraq, after kind of like bickering with Iran for a while, used that as an opportunity to try to invade. There was like a whole war for like 8 years. There was only 800,000 to 1 million people killed. There was trench warfare. It was insane. But neither Iran nor Iraq were able to actually win that war realistically. Like they kind of just stalemated for 8 years. But due to this destabilization for 8 years, oil prices just absolutely shot up, caused global inflation. It was like this whole disruption that lasted nearly a decade. And people are comparing what we're seeing right now to that. I look at this completely different. I just don't think it's the same thing. Realistically, they're not capable of prolonging a war with the United States. Maybe they can prolong it for a few weeks or a few months, but the truth is that if you think Iran could last with the United States for 8 years, you're just being naive. They couldn't, especially with Israel right there also on their side, on the U.S.'s side. It's not, right? And so realistically, like all of Iran could be neutralized rather quickly if the world shows. And so because of that, I don't think it could become a prolonged thing. Also, the world is just different right now. We don't rely on as much of the oil in the Middle East as we used to. Global energy consumption has shifted a little bit towards some other renewable energy sources. It went from like 40% oil to 30%, I think, or something like that. So the world doesn't rely on it as much. Like the world is just in a different place. And this is a different conflict. And so I don't think it's going to last as long as a lot of people think. I think this is a short-term temporary problem, which is creating opportunities of volatility, which are opportunities to acquire assets, in my opinion. So when the world freaks out and it gets all scared, I jump in and I buy it. And so because of that, I am using this week as a buying opportunity to DCA just a little bit in my portfolio. And I will, of course, keep you updated as I do that. So that's the latest and the greatest as to what's going on. That's why oil prices are all over the place. That's some of the news you need to see. And that's what I'm doing right now. I'm doing a little bit of buying, okay? So if you have been enjoying all the content on the channel, I'll go ahead and pull it up real quick. I remind you all, this is a brand new YouTube channel. Like if I actually go out here, you can see we're currently at 58 subscribers. I posted my first video not even 2 weeks ago. So if you have been enjoying the content, I really would appreciate it. If you like this video, comment for a little bit of engagement, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content. And yeah, so I hope you guys did enjoy today's quick update, and I can't wait to see you all in the next one. Peace out, everybody.